What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Loud Bostonian. Today I'll be doing my review of Spider-Man Far From Home. Spider-Man Far From Home is the second live-action Tom Holland Spider-Man movie. It is the seventh Spider-Man movie that has been made since the Tobey Maguire days, and it is like the 356,000th film in the MCU. It is the first film to come off of the heels of Endgame and the fallout of that movie. And as the footage from the trailers would lead you to believe, it was going to lean heavily into what the world looks like after Endgame. This is going to be a spoiler review. I have waited 2 weeks to do this review. I've seen the movie twice in that time frame, so I feel not bad at all about talking spoilers about this movie. Overall feelings on it, I loved it. I thought it was amazing. I liked it so much that when I went back to see it the second time, I actually liked it even more because I was able to just sit back and enjoy it without having to, try to figure everything out as it was happening. And I think it is fantastic. For me, it actually falls in at number 5 in the entire MCU movies for me. It is not as good as Endgame, not as good as Infinity War. Obviously, those are crazy big films. Probably not as good as Thor Ragnarok for me, and probably not as good as Winter Soldier, but it is right there with Winter Soldier for me. It is. I think it comes in at number 5, but it is right there for me. And if that list didn't give you the clue at all, it is my favorite Spider-Man movie ever put out there. And yes, I know, it seems like heresy to say Into the Spider-Verse isn't the best one, because it is fantastic, don't get me wrong. But something about Far From Home really landed with me. I loved this fucking movie. I thought it was incredible. Incredible. Now, similar to Homecoming, it has a very John Hughes vibe. They really nail the high school element. They really nail the awkwardness of Peter Parker, the awkwardness of his friends. I swear it is so well written that something about this, and it goes a lot to Tom Holland because he is by far the best Spider-Man we've ever had. He is so good. He is so Peter Parker, and everything about it was just great. I loved it, man. I really did. Jake Gyllenhaal coming in as Mysterio, awesome. Obviously, the trailers lead you to believe. And again, like I said, spoilers, guys, so no big deal here. The trailers lead you to believe that Mysterio is a good guy here to help you, but anybody who knows anything about the comics and Spider-Man and Mysterio is a fucking liar. He is an actor selling illusions to try and make himself seem a hero in this movie. And it is nailed perfectly. And the tie-ins to the deeper MCU with Jake Gyllenhaal are fantastic. They are so good. Quentin Beck being an Stark employee who invented the glasses from Civil War that render all the illusions in front of people. Genius. I never even, when I was thinking of what Mysterio could bring to how his illusion tech could really work, I never even considered that it was the Tony Stark tech that he brought in Civil War. So that was hilarious to bring that into it, and really cool to tie it all back together. Who else is good in this movie? Nick Fury, obviously. Samuel L. Jackson's been great and everything. Loved him in this one. I thought he was even funnier than he's been in the other movies. Obviously, there's a lot of humor in a lot of Marvel movies, but more so in Spider-Man does it feel earned, Not that Guardians isn't funny. I hated Guardians 2. I don't think it's funny at all. But Guardians 1 obviously nailed humor. Ragnarok nails humor. A lot of them nail humor. But Spider-Man, it really fits, especially from the high school element, all the jokes you can make there and the jokes that Nick Fury plays off Spider-Man being a kid. It's really good. He was really good. Zendaya, who I actually had a problem with Zendaya in the first movie. Not so much with her acting. Not so much with anything she did. I thought she was a fine character. But in the end of Homecoming, when they just threw in, because her name was like Mary Beth throughout the movie, and then all of a sudden they were like, oh, just call me MJ. Like, you can't just become MJ if you're not Mary Jane. I take that back, because in this movie, where she has a lot more to do and she's much more centrally focused, I loved her. I thought she was great, and I actually take back everything I said about the "she can't be MJ" quotes from my Homecoming review years ago. She can be, and she is MJ. She's great. She's not Mary Jane, but she's MJ, and I buy that, and I really, really enjoyed it. I thought she had great chemistry with Tom Holland. They were both so awkward with each other, and it truly made me feel like how I felt in high school talking to girls, and vice versa. But it was really cool, and her stuff with Peter was really good, and you truly feel like she really liked him, and she really has feelings for him, and it wasn't just about her thinking he was Spider-Man and being able to figure that sort of shit out. But I did like their back and forth when she did come out and say to him, because you're Spider-Man. And then the back and forth on the bridge was really classic and good. And then, he plays it off like he's not Spider-Man, and then almost immediately goes back on it when they figure out that Mysterio has been playing everybody. I am Spider-Man. We need to go right now. I just made a huge mistake. And it was hilarious. I loved it. Great, great humor in this movie. Overall, I thought the action was awesome. Mysterio was really cool, and truthfully, if he wasn't, the actor setting up everything that he sets up like Mysterio typically does, and he actually just had those weird mystical powers, kind of like Doctor Strange in a way, it would have been pretty cool if it was real, especially the whole multiverse thing that he's suggesting. So, granted, that's bullshit, and it's all fake, and the elementals or whatever the hell he called them are all fake, so he's not fighting them, which is good, though, because technically he didn't fight Hydro Man or the Sandman or any of the characters we thought might be represented by those elementals in the trailers. They're not there. They're still on the table to be played in other Spider-Man movies. Overall, this movie, the world it sets up post-Endgame, it's pretty fucking weird. I gotta be honest. That was actually my only complaint about this movie is, so the people that, as they call it in the movie, blipped away, the people that were, as we would have called it before, the blip, the people that were snapped away, when they come back, they're back in whatever grade they disappeared in. Makes sense, right? Because they're technically all the same age. What I don't get, and which they don't really explain at all, why did the kids in the timeline who didn't blip away, would they just stop going to school? Because all of a sudden that friggin', the one kid, Brad, or I think his name was in the movie, he was like, if he was 5 years later, he was like almost 20, or if not 20. He wouldn't be a junior in high school or a sophomore in high school, whatever the hell grade it is. He would just have already gone through school and graduated. Did they stop schooling the people that were left on the planet? Because that sounds nuts to me. And it's actually a little creepy that he comes back. So, especially when he's in junior year class, like at 20 years old, like hitting on MJ, like it was just weird. So, having said that, I don't know why I made that sound so weird, because honestly, my wife, when I started dating my wife, I had just left high school like 6 months prior, and she was still in high school, so it makes me sound a little bit like an asshole if I don't acknowledge that I had similar roots. But again, it's a 5-year blip though, so that kid's 5 years old. That's way creepy, and that was the only issue I had with that film. Just that. So. But I love this movie. I thought they nailed it. I truly, truly love everything that was put into it. You could feel the heart of the characters. You could feel the love of the filmmaker to, have the odes to the John Hughes movie, respect to Spider-Man. And this movie's Spider-Man action, the best. You haven't seen web-slinger Spider-Man, really. You didn't really see it in Homecoming too much. And you didn't really get to see it in, Infinity War or an Endgame, really, because, again, those are big battles on place. But seeing him zip through New York City and seeing him zip through Europe and all the things that he was, flying, like zipping through and swinging his web and setting up, the use of him, like, setting up webs to stop things was awesome. Like, way cool. Like, there was a scene, obviously, on the ferry in Homecoming that was pretty cool. There's a lot of scenes like that in this movie, and you truly feel that it was, it was Spider-Man using all of his abilities. The spider sense, obviously, he kind of got it in, you could see it in Infinity War, but this movie's great, and they call it the Peter Tingle, which is hilarious. Hopefully they correct that for him, because you can tell that joke's going to run out real quick if they use it in the next movie. But I loved it. I thought it was awesome, and I think they've truly know what to do with Spider-Man right now, and with all the characters that have left the MCU, no more Captain America, as far as we know. Iron Man's dead. Thor's still around, which is great. But Spider-Man's your big hitter. So I believe there's something on the table along the lines of this movie needs to make $1 billion or the rights revert back to Sony before they can make Spider-Man 3 or whatever the third Spider-Man movie would be. Farther From Home. I don't know. But I think it's going to cross it. I don't think there's any doubt in anyone's mind. It's got such good reviews, and people love it, and it's really kicking the MCU off in this new phase in a great way. So I think it's got no problem of crossing that. And as far as past that, Sony should just do... I mean, to me, it comes down to this. Sony wants their movies integrated into the MCU, right? The MCU is kind of starting fresh with this next phase. I don't see how there could be any issue, especially if you want to keep Spider-Man around. You need to keep Spider-Man in the MCU. If you want to keep him in the MCU, just incorporate the other Sony movies. It's not going to be so... Is it so much for Kevin Feige or someone from his department just to allow it to be in there? You don't have to do it in such a way that it's horrible. Just a little bit that, like... When Tom Holland shows up in the Spider-Verse or the Sonyverse movies, it won't be awkward, That's all you have to do. Just let them do it. Venom would be a great addition to the MCU if you could, find a way to work him in with some other characters. I'm not saying he'd show up in, the next Doctor Strange movie or Guardians of the Galaxy or anything like that. But like, although you could reference symbiotes in the Guardians of the Galaxy, it'd be pretty cool reference right there, just to show them on whatever, like stuck in a jar or something. That'd be an easy tie-in right there. So I don't know. You can have that one for free, MCU or Sony. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's a no-brainer to me that you should keep Spider-Man in the MCU. So, you know, the people that are heading up Marvel, do whatever you got to do to make sure that happens, because as much as we love your movies, and I should speak for myself before anybody else, as much as I love your movies, if you don't have any of your main talents, and you do currently have Spider-Man, and he's awesome, and he's the best Spider-Man you've ever had, get him and keep him. Whatever you have to do, just do it. Now, that's the end of my review of the movie, but I want to talk on the post-credit scenes, which, in my opinion, were the best post-credit scenes in any of the Marvel movies ever put to date, because not only does it set up the next Spider-Man movie, it gives you a pretty crazy setup for the rest of the MCU that has happened. So there's the mid-credit scene, the post-credit scene. The mid-credit scene shows Spider-Man after he's whipping through New York City with MJ, and he lands with her, and she's like, "Oh, that was so much fun. I don't ever want to do that again." And then what happens? A news bulletin comes up on the big jumbotron outside New York City, and it's like a video that Mysterio had recorded when he knew he was going to lose to Spider-Man. And basically, he outs Spider-Man as being this guy that was coming after him and controlling all these drones, and blames him for all the shit that Mysterio did, basically. And then also went one step further and reveals Peter Parker's name as being Spider-Man to the whole world. It's fucking crazy. But the craziest and coolest thing was the person reporting on this was J.K. Simmons playing J. Jonah Jameson again. I couldn't believe it. My mind was blown when I saw J. Jonah Jameson from the original Spider-Man trilogy back, and it was J.K. Simmons. I mean, oh my God. How great. How perfect. And I like that it wasn't the Daily Bugle or the Daily Bugle? Yes, the Daily Bugle. I always mix up the Daily Bugle and the Daily Planet. Totally shouldn't. Huge comic fan. I'm an asshole for it, but I always do. And instead of it being just a regular newspaper, it is now just like one of those conspiracy theory sites that you go to on the internet, and it makes total sense. And J. Jonah Jameson would be the perfect person to run one of those sites anyways. So I loved that. I thought it was fantastic, and I really have no idea where they're going to set up for the next movie. I know there was big talks of them wanting to do a Kraven the Hunter movie, and if Kraven the Hunter is going to come in as the villain in the next Spider-Man movie, and he believes that Spider-Man is a bad guy, even more so than anything, that actually leads to him coming and hunting him down it leads more to him wanting to come and hunt him down. You know what I mean? It gives him more of a reason to do it rather than just hunt and kill the Spider-Man. But if he's coming after Peter Parker and he knows that he thinks Peter Parker did this horrible thing to Mysterio and the horrible thing to all these places around the globe, it makes even more sense for him to come and do it. And I think Kraven is the best villain you should get to come after him, because he is a relentless murderer who's going to be coming after Spider-Man, especially when you have a young Tom Holland Spider-Man who, honestly, he's a kid still. He just said it the whole movie. I'm a kid. You need an Avenger. You need somebody who's adult and ready for these kinds of things. And even though the movie does have him come through that, come above it, and be the hero that he should be, having Kraven come after you would be fantastic. And that is definitely the route they should go. Now, the post-credit scene, you see Maria Hill and Nick Fury driving off, and then they shapeshift, and they are the Kree from, the Skrulls. The Skrulls from Captain Marvel. The Talos, the main character of the Skrulls, they're just sitting there, and they've been Nick Fury the whole movie, and it's fantastic. And they're doing a phone call into the real Nick Fury, who's up on some Skrull spaceship out in the middle of space. What the fuck's he doing there? What is that? I don't know what the setup is at all for the next MCU, but I was super intrigued, and it was both hilarious and super exciting. So the movie literally had the best post-credit scenes out of all the MCU. I loved them. I thought they were so good, and they really just queued you up for the next one. So that's all I'm going to give you guys today for this review. I think I said a lot in this time frame that I've been speaking, but I don't want to bore you too much. I love the movie. I thought it was fantastic. I want to know what you guys thought of Far From Home. Where does it rank with you among the Spider-Man movies? Where does it rank with you among the MCU movies? As always, if you like the video, if you like what you heard here, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and we'll catch you guys next week.